IDBM Challenge, Season 1, Episode 6. I think the first time I heard about design management was in 1979 in Saigon. I was completely puzzled by these two contradictory terms. How do you make them work together? But in today's episode, we'll take you through the basics of design management and why you should care about that. Enjoy.
Hello everyone! I'm very happy that you're joining us today, and I'm very happy that you're here, Paula.
Thank you, Theresa.
And maybe you can just tell us a little bit about your background.
My name is Paula Bello. I'm design manager. My background is a product and strategic designer. I did actually my master and my doctorate at Aalto University many years ago when it was still Taletolin and Korkeakoulu. After that, I joined Kone Corporation, where I was a design manager. My final post was a service design manager, the first one in the organization. So my task was to build the service design competence. Before that, I was working with a product portfolio, the design portfolio for elevators. After I left Kone, I am now a business partner at Livework, one of the pioneer agencies in service design based in London, Oslo, and Amsterdam. So we're looking at establishing ourselves here in Helsinki.
So, in your opinion, as having a broad experience in design management, what do you think what are the attributes or what makes a great design manager?
Well, I have been quite lucky to have really good leaders. I was working with Anne Stenros for many years and Timothy Ainen, who are the design directors at Kone. And I think some of the attributes, or probably the most important one, is about building bridges. Because design is quite often a new discipline or a new way of approaching, especially in corporations that have been existed for a long time. It's a different story from startups or small companies that are more agile in adopting design. But in a large company, being able to translate design thinking into a business thinking, into sales thinking, into operational thinking, that's really the key thing. And that from the perspective of aptitudes. Then from the perspective of attitude, how they say it? I'm thinking in Spanish. The attitude.
Attitude.
Attitude. I'm sorry. Attitude. That's the
yeah.
word I was thinking. That's very important because you have to be quite fearless many of the times, and you have to be fearless because the majority of the times the paths have not been built. So it's about finding new direction, and that is sometimes difficult. So just to take the challenge and go on.
As students of IDBM now, how should they approach this? How can you develop these skills or build bridges, as you say, or
I think
go about this?
It's by doing and start small. I think that one of the when I took my role as a service design manager, the key question was, what is service design, first of all, and what does it mean for Kone? I use that case because that's where I learned the most. And the most effective thing is start by one person. That's how you change an organization. So having lunch with key people from other functions, so you understand also what is their motivations, what are they looking for, what are their fears, and then that you also have a chance to say what design could mean for them in very concrete terms. So one person by one person, that's how you change the organization.
So, as a design manager, what has been one of your a big learning moment for you?
I think probably my bootcamp training was creating the service design competence at Kone, because we had to start from zero, start from defining what service design is in general and what it means for Kone. And we needed to start from ourselves, and it took some time to be able to explain and to gain the trust in the organization to start building something, and not because of a challenge of not wanting, but because it's really difficult to explain. Many times I think that it's more the challenge of ourselves of explaining what we do and why we do it than of the organization understanding it. But perhaps the key moment was when there was a single moment that I realized, like, okay, now we have gotten it. After getting many questions of what is service design and not being really able to explain, we got small budget to make a pilot project because we thought maybe we have to show what it is rather than tell what it is. So we got a small budget, we got a big challenge. One of the ones the technology organization thought it was the biggest challenge, and we got an external agency to help us how to frame this. And we just did very few people, little money, very short time, a test. And we came up with some solutions. We had some paper prototypes, and one of the one I felt that was really important, we make actually a digital mock-up of what it could be. And the moment I had another meeting with the business team who were already very tired of me, the moment that they saw the mock-up prototype of what the solution could be, there was really a second that one of the top business owners lifted the eyebrow. You could see that he was like, oh, now we're talking. So I think when you're able to make either a big vision, a big problem, a big desire to make the organization or the product or the service really customer user driven, when you're able to make that future concrete enough for everyone to grasp, that's where the magic moment of design is.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So prototypes, making things tangible.
Exactly.
Is very important.
Yeah, because in my experience, everyone in the organization had a vision of where they wanted to go, but still in big terms, in big dreams. And what design can contribute it is to make those small bits that are concrete enough that you can grab it and say, like, yes, that's where we want to go and how we're going to get there.
In which ways do you use design to elevate innovation in projects?
I think that the most powerful way of doing that is the visualization part. Also using out-of-the-box methods. I think everyone is so tired of PowerPoints and linear stories. So using, for instance, videos to bring the voice of the customer on the end user rather than have a PowerPoint that has 3 bullet points that this is what the customer wants. Have a video of the customer saying what makes a good day for them. That was a very powerful way of using design and using this, better say, design thinking and design methodologies to try to build some innovative solution or even framing the problem or the challenge in a different way. What other ways? Making scenarios, but making scenarios as accessible and in a different way than what business scenarios can be like. So looking really at the qualitative aspects, because I think that's what we're hungry for. We have a lot of data of what business needs and of what customers do, but we don't understand why they do a certain thing. For instance, a bank may have data of how their customers use their credit card or they don't use it, but what designers can do by observing the everyday behavior is understand the motivation, how they act like they act. So how to bring, it's a big question of how to use design to make innovation. I think it's about, again, making the future concrete or the customer or user desires concrete enough to be able to act upon. Because it doesn't help you much to say we are customer-centric company, but what it can help you to move forward is to say, for my customer, a good day is when he looks good in front of his tenants, in the case of Kone, or for my customer, what makes a good day is when he has to work less, or when my end user makes a good day is when she can handle baby and work without being compromised with either. So it's about making the big questions into small bits that you can do something about.
Thank you. So, in your experience, and as the students of IDBM now is gonna be facing, they're gonna have a complex project, and I'm really curious if you know any tools or methods that they can use to be able to navigate complexity and be able to better deal with like high level of uncertainty in a project.
No. I don't think there is one way of doing that, but I think the sooner you move into concrete hypotheses. Maybe hypothesis is the best way, that you have different hypotheses that you can present. For instance, the customer of the IDBM project, this is how we have understood you in a scenario format, for instance. This is our hypothesis. Are we in the right direction? And so maybe that, but for me the best is just to print things out and start putting in the wall and organize and reorganize them. I mean, the typical we actually have a really good picture from Kone that from outside the building you could see where the service design team was, because all the building was really clean, as as in the renders of the architects, and then our room you could see it filled with bright post-its from the street, actually almost from the highway, because it was so high. So, but at the end of the day, that space was what also helped us, because it was inspiring, it was different than others. It showed somehow that it was a creative area. I remember one day quite late, some guy from some front line from I don't know where in Europe came and knocked the door, and he asked, because he had heard about what we were doing and so on, and he asked like, "Excuse me, is this where the magic is being done?" And I was so proud, because one of our designers stood up and she was like, "Absolutely, welcome, come in." So I think it's just feel comfortable that it's going to be uncertain, and that's part of the process. It's okay to be like, where do we start? Because you never know actually where to start with. So start printing things out, start making notes, start organizing them, because then soon enough you will find some patterns. And if you don't move along 2 or 3 hypotheses at the same time until you have some feedback from either the customer or the end users you're working with. But just trust a bit yourself and feel comfortable with not having a clue with what you're doing, because that always happens.
Indeed.
Yes.
So be visual.
Yes.
Validate assumptions that you have, perhaps.
Yeah.
Print out, put up on the walls.
Yes. Prototype. Yes. Be a designer, because that's what we all been hired for. I think sometimes we want to be too business-like or too technology techies or technology-driven, but be designers. Visualize, be concrete, be imaginative, think of the future, go out there and always have a really positive and can-do attitude, because that's also contagious. As a negative attitude is contagious, also a positive one. And you at some moment you put that you wanted to ask what I was looking for when building a design team.
Yes,
So,
exactly. I was really curious to hear, like, what are you looking for when you build a team?
well, I remember reading some applications from 23-year-olds that wanted to make the strategy to change the company. That's not going to happen. And one cannot believe that at 23 you have the capability to do so. So be humble, but be very concrete on what you want to do, because I don't think a design manager hires the person as it is in that moment, but the person that can become. And that's why it's so important, the attitude. I always look for fearless people, that it was not so much about the design methodologies they knew, but how I could feel that they would tackle an issue and figure it out together with us, because that's the majority of the cases. You can learn methodologies and tools and all that, but you need to have the right attitude.
So in your experience, what do you think is the opportunities and perhaps also the challenges when it comes to interdisciplinary teams?
Yeah, well, I think all design work, if it wants to have a real impact, has to be interdisciplinary by nature, because you need to bring, it's not just about imagining the most desirable future, it's about how to get there. And so you have to bring in the persons that know how to get there. So that's one of the most important capabilities. Not to be an expert on business, for instance, but be able to communicate with a business person, to listen, to draw conclusions of what they want. Communicate, not be an expert of everything, but have some basic understanding and especially respect of the other disciplines. Because at the end of the day, in my experience, everyone wants to create something better and something good and something valuable. Yeah. But we have different ways of reading how to do that. So being responsive enough and respectful enough to try to understand those different perspectives and then bring them in rather than fight them, that's what, in my opinion, interdisciplinarity is in design.
So what advice would you give the IDBM students?
Don't think of whatever project you're doing as a school project. You have a client and you have to deliver it, and you are accountable for what you deliver. And who knows, this could be not a project but your interview for a job. So think you're actually in an agency and you have to completely blow the mind out of your client. So take that attitude. You're not at school anymore.
So Paula, what comes to your mind when I say success?
Building.
Technology.
Human.
Space, like outer space.
Frontiers.
Business.
Impact.
Innovation.
Innovation.
This little guy.
Every time I hear innovation, I can only refer to your former director, Mikko Korja, because I learned from him that it has, for innovation to be, real innovation has to be socially implemented. So, social impact.
Social impact. Mikko Korja. Future.
Our responsibility.
Strategy.
The big idea.
Design.
The future in concrete terms.
And IDBM.
Some of the best designers I have recruited.
Wow. And IMDB.
IMDB. What is that?
Thank you. Thank you, Paula. So IMDB is actually, it's like a film site, and everybody, it's quite often that people confuse these two terms.
Right. Actually, when I wrote IDBM when I was trying to look for that database, so I have the opposite problem.
Yeah, okay. But that's a good accent. So actually, IDBM goes before IMDB.
Yeah.